स्वदेशे पूज्यते राजा, vidwan sarvatra पूज्यते. That is, the king is worshipped in his own kingdom, but the intellectual or the knowledgeable is worshipped everywhere. Now, this is very true for the kind of world we are living today. The knowledge is mobile, it moves from one place to another. It is not only the technology that has shaped the transmission or sharing of knowledge, but it is also the nature of the knowledge itself. ज्ञान जो है वो खुद ही चेंज हो रहा है इस फॉर्मेट में कि वो easily accessible है, easily transmittable है और कहीं ना कहीं easily understandable भी है. In this scenario, in this context, we would like to today discuss about the changing trend, the changing nature of essay or the type of essays which are asked in UPSC. Welcome all of you to ProdEgyIAS platform. This is Ashutosh Pandey, and I would be today discussing about the essay or how to write a good essay. First of all, this statement itself is very controversial. How to write a good essay? Essay is the origin of your mind and not necessarily a format or a template created by someone else. Essays reflect your inner persona. To a large extent, they somewhere depict how or to what extent have you been able to understand and assimilate the knowledge around yourself. How you have viewed the world and how easy for you it is or difficult for you it is to interpret the world which exists around you. Do you make sense of the things which exist, which happen, or you simply ignore them as casual events? Something which is very small as an accident on the road, or something which is very big as a terrorist attack, both have significance with respect to the context in which they are being held. A small accident may have numerous implications, right, related to governance, administration, traffic management, lawlessness, the casual approach of people towards authority, or for that matter, the lack of fast and efficient health services. It may also reflect in general the apathy of people towards the issues and events around them. Whereas terrorism may have a global or national or regional and probably an impact on the overall humanity, and it may have a big impact on the crisis management at the national level and at the global level or at the regional level. It may also impact or refer to many ideological and communal changes that are happening around us, especially after the aftermath of technology and globalization. Now it is up to you. How are you going to infer or interpret these events? These events will make sense to you only when you have something to compare, when you have something to look into. If there is an empty vessel, obviously things will just be information or dates or some facts or data to you, nothing more than that. The same way you celebrate your birthdays, right, year after year, just remembering the date and not necessarily the process through which you have evolved over the years, right? So this happens with all of us. Now, in this context, many of you might have tried to write essays and you might have failed, you might have written essays and might have scored also, right? There are students we meet who say I scored 110, 97, then 120, and likewise, but yes, there is no consistency in the marks that I get. Every time I choose an essay, I think I will be able to write it, but halfway when I reach the essay, I'm not able to continue it further. I am devoid of ideas as to take up the essay further. Then language. When UPSC itself wants an essay to be more creative and original rather than a mugged up content, Definitely, it requires a hard work. It requires more than merely writing the tests in the essays. It may require something more beyond your usual general studies knowledge. And no doubt, that knowledge will be a supplement and input to that essay, but definitely it will not be the essay. People who have optionals like political science, public administration, sociology, anthropology, history, geography, or to a certain extent literature, they have quite an orientation to write things, but I would not say good essay, but they have an orientation of content that is needed to write things. Whereas people having mathematics or geology or technically the other sciences and engineering subjects or even management or even commerce, right, they might not have the exact type of language or the beautification of the content as needed. Though these are also the myths that content has to be aesthetic, it has to be relevant, it has to be, uh, I would say, relevant in the sense it has to be theoretically and philosophically very relevant, right? So we will try to take up a topic now, considering all these problems and issues that students have, and many of them obviously are in dearth of the content and the language and the ideas, and in fact the structure on which the essay has to be written. So today we'll take up one essay from the UPSC 2024 exam, and we would choose at random, right? There are 4 topics. We are taking part 1. There were topics like forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. Obviously, you know what's been happening, right? I don't need to tell you, you know what's been happening in the urban areas. The entire urbanization is an example of this. The unregulated infrastructure development, the creation of linear projects, the emergence of industrial development, the acquisition of land, the cutting down of forest, the emergence of new models of development, concrete jungles, urban islands or heat islands. That's a concept in geography, right? Or when you study economic geography, you see how the central business districts are developed, how the traditional trade centers are developed, and they attract different types of population, right? Creating unnecessary pressure on the urban areas who do not have adequate infrastructure or civic infrastructure. The same thing that happened in Delhi or many other places, or in Chennai, right, or Kerala or Himachal or Uttarakhand, and in that sense, right, most of the places in this country, Mumbai and likewise. So it is a topic which has philosophical and evidential or evidentiary, that is factual aspect. यानी इसी हिस्से में 2 पार्ट्स हैं, एक दार्शनिक है, philosophical है, which requires more idea, more understanding of the basic principle, the basic ideas, and one is the factual aspect. We have numerous examples for that. Now, if you take up this topic, right, definitely you can give a lot of examples and you can talk about many developments that are taking place, but the problem with this topic is that you may not be able to sustain the flow of the ideas. Because where you have to be very concrete and where you have to be analytical, right, that will be a challenge while writing this topic. Do you have historical examples? Can you bring Mohenjo-daro and Harappan civilization into this analysis? Can you talk about ancient civilizations, right, and the emergence of those populated cities? Can you talk about rivers, forests, wildlife? Can you talk about laws, institutions, mechanisms, disasters, and many other things, right? So this may have a general challenge for the people who may not have much understanding of environment, biodiversity, forest, geography, environmental geography, and likewise, and even urban development and planning. So it will bring these perspectives, right? Let's take the topic 2. भविष्य के साम्राज्य मस्तिष्क के साम्राज्य होंगे. The empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. Now this gives little interesting idea. Why? It is very important that this topic seems academic neutral. It doesn't matter what your optional is. Yes, if you have obviously studied certain optionals, you will have certain edge, no doubt. But then it somewhere gives you the idea that yes, it does not involve any academic influence. This is more open-ended topic, and that would be more suitable in case you are a person who likes writing in that scenario. Obviously, if you're a person of few words and if you're a person of less imagination, then you might feel difficulty in writing these topics. So you go and pick up, choose number one. Or let's see one of them, the other ones. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. See, it becomes a little more abstract here. Right? Here, to at least there is a cue that you can write, the mind, the intelligence, the intellect you're talking about. But here, you will miss the idea. Everyone is searching for happiness, right? From Socrates to Aristotle to Gandhi to Buddha. Everyone, right? Or Buddha to Gandhi, everyone was in search for that virtuous life. And what was the virtuous life? The end is the happiness. But end is the happiness without the means of happiness that cannot be possible. So things are not happiness. Materialism is not happiness, right? Comfort is not happiness. It may be an ingredient to happiness. So happiness is the end objective, or happiness is the means. Fine. Now, so it is the debate, right? The means and debate, or when you study ethics, you understand the teleological, deontological debate. Right? So you can simplify the idea, right? When things are abstract, you can simplify them to certain aspects that you know and then try to write it. But like I said, the three becomes more abstract than the two. The doubter is a true man of science. Right? This also is quite open-ended. It is also an interesting topic, right? Obviously, people who are coming from science background, who have curiosity, or in general, people who have scientific temperament, definitely can write it better. Otherwise, what will happen? Few of you will just move around the idea that you have to be curious, you have to be innovative, you have to ask questions, you have to seek explanation. Without that, there is no existence of true knowledge, right? You may be, moving around this idea only, and you may not get enough qualitative content. You may not get enough advantage in terms of putting various dimensions. So out of these four, right, these two seem to be more logical. So first important thing is to choose the topic. Because you have ample time, you have 3 hours, you have 2 essays to be written, part A and part B. There are 2 each from one part, right? Or sorry, one from each part you have to choose, and then you have to write. So you have time, right? If you have time, definitely give some space for analysis, evaluation of the topic, and try to think out the various dimensions. In fact, don't just pick up one topic. Take up these 4 topics. You can use your 10 minutes wisely to compare them, that okay, which one of them seems to be more credible, seems to be more relevant, seems to be more less open-ended, seems to be more intangible, and can be put into black and white. It is up to you now. Fine. So let us say if you choose this one, right? Now in general, if I if I say okay, how to write an essay. How to write an essay, how to depict an essay, how to even think about an essay. So what is the first important thing is if you have part A, right, and part B. So we have some simple checklist. We have some simple aspects, right? One is to make a choice. Choice should be made only by comparison and not necessarily because I know this. Because if you just look at the keyword or the topic and you say, I can write it, right? Maybe you have not understood the sense of the entire sentence and you might be stuck in between. Comparison. Always try to choose a topic which is distinct here and distinct here, not similar type of topics, because then your content will be more or less same. And when the evaluator evaluates it, he will not find any novelty, any newness in your answer. So if he is biased reading this, he will use the same logic here and evaluate you. So make it distinct. Right? These are simple rules, which you can call them as rules. Right? These are rules of operation, nothing else. Right? They are not science, they are not some rocket science, they are just rules. You can find it, use it, follow it. Right? So making a choice, spend some time in making the choice. Right? While going for the choice, you have to look into two things. One, is it open-ended? Right? Is it closed? The open-ended topics, right? The open-ended topics, if it is visible, let's use white visible. Black is better. Let's keep it. So, if it is open-ended, fine. It will have a lot of abstraction. Fine. It will tend to be little abstract. If it is closed-ended, it would be more specific. Now you have to remember what UPSC wants. The UPSC does not want an answer, right? Not an answer. Kindly avoid this logic that I have to give an answer. It does not want an answer. It wants an expression. The expression consists of many things, right? One is spontaneity and innovation. So you don't have to just go and write some facts here and say, I made a diagram, I gave tables, I referred to reports, and I wrote. That's not an essay. That's a research report. Don't write that. So essay is the product of the mind. It's the fertility of the mind. But yes, everybody cannot have that fertility in few months, right? It requires time. And that is why you'll see the scoring patterns. Erratic, some are getting 130, 140, not just because they have mugged up the content, because they have developed the style of writing. That's more essential. Fine, but let us say, right? Okay. So one basic rule could be this: to find out what is open-ended closed. Now it depends upon you. If you are a good writer, if you feel that you have a lot of vocabulary, you have good content, fine, go for this. Marks will not reduce. If you go for this and your essay looks like an answer of general studies, marks will reduce. There's no doubt about it. So if you have more flair for language, expression, you can simplify things, you can elaborate things, you can write one line in 20 lines. Correct, right? Otherwise, you can go for closed-ended. Marks will not vary much. It depends purely on the nature of the content you are writing. Fine. Basic rule 1. Right? So let's keep it rule number 1. You have to understand this. Fine. Then fine. Fine. Let's take the rule number 2. Now, rule number 2, so once you have made the choice, you have compared it, you have found out whether it is open-ended, closed-ended, right? Then, like I said, you have to see that part A topic is not exactly the same as part B, even though UPSC may also not give that way, but still try to refrain from that. Otherwise, you will yourself become monotonous. You'll become yourself become more bored, right? Is it visible to you? Okay. So if you do this, it will be boring, unimaginative, right? And repetition of content. Repetition of content. Fine. So kindly try to avoid. This is the second rule. Now, let's keep the rule number 3 now. Fine. Now, rule number 3. Now, whenever you choose an essay, once you have chosen the topic, you have understood that it is an open-ended or closed-ended, then you have to, see that whether you have chosen certain different topics so that yourself you don't get bored, you don't write the same content, your answer or your essay reflects some type of creativity. Then what do you do once you have chosen the topic, right? I would suggest, because you have to write around 1,000 words, let's say 1,200 words or 1,250 words, right? 125 marks almost. Even if you say 1,002, is it visible? Okay, yes. So 1,000 to 1,500 words, whatever, right? Then what do? You break the topic. So you have the topic. Let's say you've chosen the topic. Now you break this topic, topic into, fine, 20 to 30 key words. 20 to 30 keywords. Fine, very simple. It's one of the most simplest methods through which you can write a very good essay. Break that into 20, 30 keywords. Right? Every keyword will reflect the domain of the essay that you're going to write. So, for example, if you want to take up an idea, right, great empires or the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. Let's take up that topic, and you will say, okay, what keywords? So you're talking about what? Knowledge. You're talking about knowledge. You're talking about transition. Sorry. Transition from territorial, colonial, right, imperial, transitions to the intellectual, technological. So change from this to this. Fine. Then, obviously, when you are talking about these ideas, you will also have to come with concrete examples. So you have a lot of examples you can use. How are you going to state this, right? So examples are how your emergence of, you have Silicon Valley, right? Right, from Nalanda to India's own success story, Bengaluru, right? Or likewise. So you may have a lot of examples here through which you can build this idea, right? Then it is also obvious that these ideas have to be understood at various levels, at the global perspective, right? At our national perspective, and even at local perspective. We have to link these ideas to the changing nature of the governance, how the governance is shifting. The empire cannot run without a governance system. So how the governance itself is transforming. how nature of policies are evolving, right? How our focus is on human development indices, and likewise. See. So once you have understood the topic, now break or think of the topic in 20, 30, 40 maximum, not more than that. 20 to 35 is a very good number of keywords, which keywords and ideas around which you can build your essay. Then, once you have developed these keywords, now you can simplify because you have enough time to write the essay. Once you have done this hard work, your essay hardly can be written in probably 45, 50 minutes. Right? So once you have these keywords can be, right, divided into a kind of hierarchy. Right? You can make a kind of priority of this, priority of ideas, simple. Right? If I write it in a simplest manner, what comes first? That's the idea. So the best idea is to write out what will come first. Do the same for topic 2. Obviously, when you're writing topic 2, not now. Once you finish one, good. Right? Even if you want in the beginning itself, you can do it for both the topics, and then you start writing. That will be a seamless writing for you. So you can identify what comes first. Fine. Once you're through with this, right, you think of the structure now. Now people look for a standard structure. Yes, there are standard structures. Structure is the screenplay. How are you going to depict that essay now? Because it is in your mind, it is in your idea, but now it has to be on paper. Whenever you're writing an essay, right, focus on structure. The structure is most simplest form of structure when you say is like an intro, right, a body, a conclusion. But talking about this structure in simple word means that we are simply describing the Mount Everest which we want to climb. We still haven't started climbing it, but we are describing it in a very detailed, minute detail. Describing alone is not going to lead us there, but we have to describe. So we can say, okay, intro, body, structure, but what exactly is the content? That's the biggest problem. Now, if you want to make it interesting, you divide introduction. Introduction into what? The starting of the introduction. So how the introduction is going to start, right? It can start with a phrase. If we take up the essay, right, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So let's say we use Gandhi. Gandhi says, right, the brain or the wisdom is not a vessel to be filled. It's a fire to be light or lighted, or fire to be lit. Now, you can start it with an expression, right? You are starting the statement and trying to make sense of the statement which has been given to you in the paper. So you start with a phrase which may seem to be similar with the expression which is given. So it starts or it keeps the continuity of your idea for the essay. Right? So you start with a phrase. Then once you start with the phrase, you can elaborate. You can elaborate upon this idea. You can elaborate upon the topic. So what exactly, this is just the starting, right? 2, 3 lines, 4 lines you can write, 5 lines you can write. So starting or elaborate upon the topic, that what does it mean? This particular topic or this particular idea talks about the understanding and the nature of the emergence of the modern influences through knowledge and intelligence and not through armies and territorial control. So you can start it this way. Fine, or it highlights the importance, the dominance of knowledge rather than dominance of weapons and physical force. Territories don't mean anything, right? Today there is a boundary-less interaction in the world. So you can explain this part. Simplify, explain it. Elaborate, write certain aspects, explain it. So in introduction, you can start with this phrase, this, fine. Or even you can start with a interesting story. You can start with a news item that India successfully launched this satellite, right? Many countries today have reached moon. Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars, right? You can start with the idea and write it. It is up to you. So start it, right? With this introduction itself, one part is to start, elaborate, describe in detail what the topic is about. The other part of the intro can set the tone for the body that you're going to write. That is the next paragraph. So when you are now through with this, then you can, I'm putting this as 1, right? Let's keep this as 1. And this as 2, right? So once it is done, then what you do here, the same which the idea which you have explained here, right? Now you highlight. Highlight the SOP, the statement of purpose or the objective. Fine, or you can say the flow of your essay. And make this tone highly interactive, right? आप उसको ऐसे बोलिए, you speak in a manner that there is someone sitting in front of you. See? In the age of AI, we are trying to give you natural intelligence where you will follow a standard template, but it will never look like a standard template. It will not be a copycat of each other. If everyone copies the similar idea, no one gets the marks. Fine, but yes. So you can come with this. This is the second part. Fine, this now. So once you have done this, you can do this. Then you should move to the body. The connection of 1 and 2 with, let's say, this is the, right? It has many parts. It will have 3, 4, 5 parts. And likewise, so as you understand the nature of your topic, the scope of your topic, you can very logically divide your body into, let's say, if you say 3 to 6 paragraphs. And this will be enough. Fine, each paragraph may somewhere remain around 75 to 100 words. So 500, 600 words, 700 words in the body is quite good, right? Starting with 200 words around in the introduction and 300, 400, 200 words in the conclusion. When I'm saying conclusion, conclusion is not just 2 lines that you finish something. It has to be more than that, better than that. Fine. So let's take now the body. So you have body, fine. And this, like I said, you break this into 3, 4, 5, logical 6 paragraphs. Right? You have the pestle, political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal, right? Wise. Fine. Or you can basically start with the idea of peel. Right? Raise the point. What is the point? Raise one aspect here. Then talk about the evidence. You have some facts, data, ideas about it. Fine. Then analyze it. Fine. And then finally link it. Right? Simple example. So if you're dealing with that essay that we are just talking about, you take that essay, you've started with the essay, you want to start with the first paragraph, and you talk about the political aspect, right? Or you want to discuss the basic point. What is the basic point here? The basic point here, we are talking about power. We are talking about authority and its transition. Simplify. So authority or its transition, power or its transition, right? Then you can start talking about how monarchy to colonial to democracy to varied forms. What are these? These are transition of systems, right? Based on the exposure to the knowledge. Fine. Right? The movement of the humans from the from the apes or the chimpanzees, from the Neanderthals to what you can say the stone men, to the cavemen, to the modern agrarian men, to the modern agrarian people, to the modern industrial people. That is what? That is a transition of knowledge. Invention of wheel is a transition of knowledge. So you might use these ideas, fire, right? Or agriculture, or you say tools. So whether you talk about different ages, how people acquire tools and how people use these tools, and in the process they became more informed about nature, more informed around problems around them. See now, so you can break this part into a particular aspect or dimension, that the dimensions points should be raised, that what exactly in political I want to talk, what exactly in economic I want to talk, what exactly in environmental I want to talk. So now your 4-5 paragraphs would be divided, right? Sorry, into this phase. Simple idea. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, for example. Fine. These will have in simple their own connections. So that once you finish with the political, you say, let's explore the economic dimensions as well. Right? Let's explore or let's move forward with the idea. See, this maintains a simple sentence, but it maintains continuity in the reader. The one who is reading your essay becomes more hooked to the idea. And it starts making more sense to the person. Fine. Are you able to understand this? Okay, great. So let's move now. So you have these paragraphs, now you write it. Now within this body, within when you're looking at the body of the essay, right? Within this body, obviously you can use illustrations, right? Because essays are generally descriptive in nature. So you can use illustrations. If you want graphs, use it. Right? If you want data, use it. Fine. You can say, by India, when became, or India under colonial rule, had this as the literacy rate. Or in the pre-industrial aspect, we had this as the literacy rate, or we had these as the indicators. As we move ahead, right? As we move ahead in terms of knowledge, right, or capability, the indicators have shifted, right? As we move towards, as we see the impact of industrial development in India. Fine, or we move towards the neoliberal era, globalization. how the state led industrial development, and this has changed the nature of various indicators or parameters in this country, whether it is literacy, whether it is research and development, whether it is expenditure on education, health, and other aspects which enhance our capability. Fine. So you can use illustrations, right? You can use, obviously, also, like I said, examples. See, UPSC itself is a big example. Right? The increasing number of women in the positions of power. What does it indicate? How patriarchy has been dismantled, right? How traditional, cultural, territorial control over culture and value system, how that has transformed. Use it. So you can use examples. You can also use, right? I would say metaphors or metaphorical aspects. So transition of India, right, from a colonial, traditionalistic, patriarchal mindset to a more liberal, open, humanistic society. The concern, the change in the concern of politics from power politics vote bank to governance or good governance and ethics in governance. The development movements, changing monopoly of the governments, right? Involvement of multiple actors. So you can use metaphorical aspects also here. I'm not talking in one paragraph, in different paragraph. Right? You can use, very interesting, the contribution of notable scholars. Obviously, if you have read them, right? For example, when you talk about Amartya Sen, rights-based approach or capabilities model, fine? Or you talk about Rawls, the fairness or justice as fairness. How will that fairness come? Knowledge. How will that fairness come? When there is transparency in the institutions, when there is distribution or equitable distribution of resources in the society, right? Now, obviously, the knowledge from your polity, economy, geography, they all come in handy, but only if that is not just a factual knowledge, if that has been understood. And that is why a lot of emphasis is given on understanding things, not just on noting it down. But yes, even if you have keywords and you have some idea, you can write it, no doubt. So you can use diagrams, you can use graphs, you can use representations, metaphors, and you can make now different paragraphs of your body interesting. Fine. Then comes the conclusion. So conclusion is not an abrupt understanding, right? We use the word conclusion should not be dead end. So we see that this is what it has happened. So as per the above discussion and analysis, we can infer that yes, the knowledge is the only tool for transforming the society, and in future the domination and control would be of knowledge and not the territories and the governments or the physical entities. This is not a conclusion. Fine, this is a suicide. So don't dead end, right? Conclusion का भी, for conclusion also you need to develop a context. उसका भी एक background, एक framework होगा. So once you have ended with the paragraph, now what do you do in the conclusion? First thing is to simplify by summarizing in summarization in very simple terms. Fine, summarization of what you have written in the previous paragraphs. So what you have written in the body, you can summarize. Don't write too much summarize. Summarize means you can write 4 to 5 lines. That would exactly be 40, 50 words, 60 words. Summarize it. Once you summarize it, then obviously you don't want to end up being conservative or backward. So obviously you will say that, okay, yes, to an extent or as per the discussion, right? Or very interesting idea could be that as per the above debate, right? Or discussion, right? It is quite true, right? Your conclusion must be little formal and not casual. Most of you end up writing conclusions which seems to be just a tale, nothing else. So it is written in such a spontaneous or handy manner that it doesn't reflect the maturity or the sincerity of the thought to end something. You generally end it abruptly, right? Because obviously you are constrained of time or you are looking to write your next topic. This may be an idea. So you can start it and write, okay, yes, as per this, it is obvious that there is or there has to be, right, an understanding of what are the future perspectives of what we have talked about. These future perspectives reflect certain things. You can appreciate the government, you can appreciate the policymakers, you can also highlight certain drawbacks, but don't extremely criticize them. You can highlight it, and this will have a big impression because this is conclusion. So you can give something like call to action, what we should do, what we should not do, right? Or we can also talk about the future perspectives, right? You can raise certain questions. Like I said, don't end it abruptly, but you can raise certain questions. Fine. You can also end up being curious that what future holds or what exactly will be the outcome. That to a large extent depends upon how as a society we are able to tackle and understand the impact of these developments. Our society reflects a diversity of ideas, fine, or you can use, like I said, the ideas or appreciate the government policies and conclude through this, right? You can use interesting taglines used by the government, right? One nation, one world, one nation or one society, one future, right? One purpose, something like that, right? Vasudev Kutumbakam, or for that matter, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, or whatever. Fine. Digital Kranti, and this. You can use these phrases and end your essay. So essay generally requires, in fact, you can use diagrams when you're concluding, right? It won't be a surprise for the examiner. In fact, it would be something good. You can use a diagram and still write about what you want to say and use a diagram and end it and say, "Bhai, the future looks like this." Right? So it is up to us, how are we going to make use of the ideas that we have talked about. Now, the detailed analysis of an essay, right, we will do in a separate topic or separate video. We at Prodigy are also launching the essay program for the mains. It will be mostly a program which would be based on two distinct approaches, two simple approaches. The program would be based on the essay at now. Obviously, I'm not going to teach you, obviously, right, teach you the content or the nature of the content, but definitely we are going to help you develop key ideas and concepts. The idea of this essay program, fine, obviously it is for your 2025 mains or in general those students who find it difficult to phrase ideas and write them, right? So there are two simple tasks. two simple approaches. One, how to standardize, how to develop a standard idea. So by developing certain standard ideas, can we develop a kind of template which we'll try to develop for different types of essays. There are different types of essays, philosophical essays, which are more or less abstract. Now there are some current perspective essays, right? Then there are some women or cultural perspective essays. Then there are essays today which are reflected more into spiritualism, into religion, religious principles and philosophies. So we'll talk about this. How do we develop certain standard templates of this? And second, is very simple, right? Is to enrich your vocabulary, right? Ideas or generating the content for your essay. How can you generate the content for your essay and still develop or maintain the continuity? So two things are vital. One is how can you enrich your vocabulary and your ideas, your thinking ability, right? And standard idea means can we have a format for more or less 3 or 4 types of segregated ideas or segregation of ideas which are visible in the essay. So there are 3 or 4 types of topics which are visible, and there may be a lot of under subtopics within them. That's different issue. But yes, if we develop a general idea regarding different topics, then we can create a standard template, and in that template obviously we can generate content and vocabulary. Vocabulary is important because you need quotations, you need ideas. Now obviously the world or the future, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind was a statement given by Churchill. Churchill gave this statement in 1943-44, obviously during the Second World War, and he was talking about how science, technology and its application is going to create a formidable combination of power. So how governments, technology, knowledge or industries can combine together and create the future dominance. Even though we may not interpret this statement today in that negative perspective. Like I told you, it's not an answer we are going to write. If we follow certain strategies, it may be easy for you to somewhere score 130 plus out of 250, which is a big advantage, right? Considering that low scores are coming at 847, 849, 870 are the cutoffs now. So you can imagine that if you are getting 130, 140 in essay, and you can get it, right? But though I would say that not all of you can get it, because until and unless you put up a standard defined level of effort and obviously involve intelligence, till the time you cannot do it. So we are not into feel good content. We are not into something which makes you feel very comfortable. You have to write, you have to think, right? But yes, there are, like I said, there are 100, 150 keywords and ideas which, when incorporated into an organized literature and organized content, that can give you marks. It is up to you. So how you are going to standardize it is up to you, right? So this is all about essay. So we'll be starting this, right, in your June program. It is for both those who are writing the mains and also for those who have written it and who have not been able to score well in the essays, right? I have my own experiences in the UPSC, right, where I started with 107 marks in the first attempt and then ended up at 141 around in the last attempt. So there has been a big difference of around 30, 35 marks for me. And how did it happen, right? There are certain nuances, there are a lot of undercurrents in that we are going to discuss with you. That will probably help you understand certain things, right? Anyway, when you say I increase the score, there is no linear method for that, right? So I would not say yes, doing exactly this, but yes, there are certain do's and don'ts which if we follow will definitely benefit us, right? So thank you so much for listening to us. All the best to you. Fine. See you again in some other video, right? Keep talking to us. Keep sending your doubts, your views, right? And subscribe. And also, okay, you can send your queries and curiosities and maybe your demands as exactly what you want in the next video. Thank you so much. This is Ashutosh. See you. All the best.